Alright fellas, now as a casual or hardcore fan of boxing, the world of boxing belts is certainly a hard one to get your head around. I think when getting into boxing or trying to explain it to somebody, understanding how belts work is one of the hardest challenges. It seems like every fight nowadays is for some sort of belt, and it's hard for people to tell what's really on the line. So today I'm going to break it down for you and try to make it as easy as possible for you to get your head around what all these belts actually mean once and for all. So let's get right into it. To start at a world title level, currently we're in the 4 belt era, meaning that in each division there are 4 recognized world title belts by 4 different sanctioning bodies. These sanctioning bodies include the International Boxing Federation, the IBF, the World Boxing Association, the WBA, the World Boxing Council, the WBC, and the World Boxing Organization, the WBO. Each of these sanctioning bodies have a world championship belt in each division, and if you hold one of these belts, you are considered a world champion. Other than these 4 major sanctioning bodies, you may have heard of world championship belts such as the IBO, the WBF, or the Ring Championship belt. Now these are outside of the 4 major belts and offer what you could call world titles. Are they truly worthy of the title world champion? Well, that's up for deliberation, but your main focus should be on the 4 main belts because that's what really matters. With these belts, you might have heard of terms before such as undisputed, lineal, and unified when it comes to the people holding the belts. The lineal champion is a tad confusing and basically follows the idea of who's best in the division regardless of the belts through lineage. So for example, Klitschko was the best heavyweight of his time until he lost to Tyson Fury. He was considered the lineal champ, and when Fury beat him, Fury then became the lineal champ. But basically this term has nothing to do with the belts, so when it comes to the belts, just don't stress it. The term unified means when you hold 2 or more of the major world title belts, aka 2 or 3 of the big 4. If you hold just one, you would say just be the WBC or the WBO champion, instead of the unified champion. While the undisputed champion is the one who holds all 4 belts at the same time. Think currently of an Inoue or a Crawford. Now, you might be sitting there going, well, Cloister, you're saying there's only really 4 belts that matter. What about all these other things I see, such as the interim champ or the continental champ or the people's champ? Well, that's where it gets a bit more complicated. To go back in time for a second, the 4 belt era is said to have begun in 2004. Prior to that you had the 3 belt, and debatably before that the 2 belt eras, and before that you had a whole bunch of different bodies and belts, but I won't confuse you by going back that far. These big 4 organisations currently haven't been around a long time, with the WBA being the oldest, that was founded in 1921, the WBC in 63, and the IBF and WBO in 88, with it taking a bit longer for the WBO to be officially recognised. Now, other than those main world title belts, you might have heard of the interim world title belt. Basically, those were originally introduced by sanctioning bodies to help address the challenges of scheduling mandatory defences. Initially, the original concept by the book was to ensure that the championship status was not left vacant for extended periods of time if the reigning champion was unable to defend the title due to injury, illness, or personal reasons. So basically, they could have fights which are classed as world championship bouts, although they are only for the interim title. With this idea mainly being adopted in the 90s, with most of the bodies jumping on board with this idea. I guess when done correctly, it does kind of work and resolve a few problems they had in the past. It forces fighters who are say ducking a fighter or enjoying a layoff to actually go and fight, because hey, I don't want there to be an interim champion when I'm the champ. It also pacifies upcoming fighters into making them think they will get a shot at the actual title, in which many cases they do, yet in some cases they don't. Like David Benavidez currently, who's the WBC interim 168 champ and still hasn't got his shot against Canelo. Yet these interim titles have been criticised for 2 major reasons. One, with no explanation, it can confuse the fans because many fans don't understand what an interim belt actually is, and it confuses who is the real champ. While also they're criticised for being seen as just another method for sanctioning bodies to generate additional revenue by handing out more belts to collect revenue from. And just quickly before continuing with the other belts, you might have heard the terms regular and super champion before. Now regular champion just means that you hold the world title belt, while the Super Champion is something that a few sanctioning bodies recognize, and usually one becomes a Super Champion through multiple defenses of a title. Another name that might be used for Super Champion includes Franchise Champion. So at a world title level, all that basically matters is the 4 main world title belts and knowing if they're the actual regular champion or the interim champion. It enables you to tell the difference between the actual champ and the bloke who probably deserves the next shot at a world title. But the rabbit hole still goes deeper. And this is where it can get confusing, but it's really not when you realize what you should pay attention to and what you shouldn't. Still on the world title stage of recent, you might have seen this trend of sanctioning bodies, mainly the WBC, handing out these random belts based on occasion. Usually these belts are handed out mainly by the WBC and are given out for the biggest of fights and are usually only for that one fight. The WBC loves handing these belts out like Oprah, but usually only when it's involving fighters they have a close tie to. This can be seen when they hand out special belts for such fights as Fury's last few fights, Canelo's even had a few of them, there was one for the McGregor-Mayweather match, and even a Jake Paul fight had a special WBC belt. And what do they mean? Well, they mean absolutely nothing. If you see a funny color belt before that you've never seen before, there's a 99% chance it's for nothing. And you will never see them again, so don't worry about them. They're just something kinda cool to look at. Then you have the next step down from world title level. This is when you might hear words such as intercontinental, silver, or national belts being thrown into the mix. All of these belts should be basically considered as a step to world title contention. This is especially the case with, say, the Intercontinental Belt, which is a belt that's meant to represent dominance across multiple continents, which is just a stepping stone for a world title shot. The WBC Silver Belt also serves as a similar point as a stepping stone. National belts are a bit different. Of course they are a stepping stone to world title contention, but in many countries they have a lot of importance, especially seen in countries such as the UK, which the national title is a bigger deal than it is in many other countries. These national titles back in the day used to be a bigger deal, but as globalization and commercialization has increased, these belts seem to have lessened in importance to the public. Say for me, I'm from Australia. Back in the day, being the Australian champ was a pretty big deal locally. But nowadays, of course, a major achievement for anyone who reaches that level. A lot of the time many people just see it as another stepping stone. And alike to the world title bodies, there are many sanctioning bodies specific to each country's local belt in the mix, so it becomes a tad confusing. But all these titles should be seen as a stepping stone to bigger opportunities, and the importance of the national belt varies from country to country. So to sum all of this up into what you need to know, the 4 main world title belts being the WBC, WBA, IBF and WBO are the only ones which actually crown a boxer a genuine recognized world champion. If one holds the interim belt, that's not a real world champion, more of a promise that they will be up next for a shot at the real belt, and it's a recognition of their skill. The Oprah Winfrey style coloured belts for events don't matter, and every other belt varies in importance, but generally you should see all these other belts as basically a stepping stone towards a world title. But just quickly, if you've never heard of me before, my name is Cloister and I make boxing videos to help keep you informed and updated. If you enjoyed this video, it would be massively appreciated if you would consider liking or subscribing. But thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.